What's happening, all you hip cool cats? My name is Kit, and welcome to Chicago Reacts. It's Christmas Eve, it's freezing cold in Chicago, but hey, let's put some smiles on our faces, Let's get our learn on about probably a character that has been, ignored or dismissed. No, he's not ignored too much, but he's always called a Mary Sue, or, he gets, of all the Primarchs, people say, oh, well, he's just average. We're going to talk about one of my favorite Primarchs, and that is Roboute Guilliman, Lord Commander. And this is a YouTube video titled, Why Roboute Guilliman is an Absolute Beast, Warhammer 40k lore by Majorkill. So, first of all, please support the original content creators because it's the right thing to do. The link to the original video will be in the description box below. And also be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe so that way you're made, and also hit that ring bell notification too. That way you're made aware when we upload new content onto our YouTube channel. So, again, I am a fan of the Ultramarines, but I'm not like, oh, they're infallible or they can't do no wrong. I like their chapter and their lore, as well as the realm of Ultramar and, Guilliman himself. I could relate a little bit to myself to Guilliman. And, I'm interested to find out why he's such an absolute beast. Why he's as tough as some of his other brother Primarchs. Now, look, let's face it. All the Primarchs have issues. All of them have issues, even the loyalist ones, okay? But let's show some love to Guilliman. Come on, after all. I mean, as it stands right now, he's the only loyalist brother to come back. And he has to clean up the mess that is the Imperium of mankind. And I have no idea how he's going to do it. And he's a demigod. So, let's go ahead and pull up this video. And since I'm in charge of the ones and twos, let's hit that play button.
G'day, guys and gal. When you close your eyes and imagine which Primarchs could eviscerate you with their pinky and then violate your remains, Guilliman probably isn't the first Primarch that comes to mind. Each Primarch was designed to be equal in the way that they were given the same amount of attention and power in their creation. Well, creating a Primarch is more of an art than a science, it seems, because some Primarchs, Sanguinius, are much better than others.
Hey, chat. All right. Let's actually have an interesting conversation here. Type in the comment section below your thoughts on the Primarchs. Who's your favorite? You can have you only can pick one Primarch that's your favorite, and pick maybe if it's a traitor Primarch too. Go ahead, and type out why they are your favorite Primarch. Give your reasons why you think that they are the best there ever was. So let's get that conversation going. I'm curious to see what everyone's thoughts are, and especially your thoughts. So there you go.
From a combat perspective, Primarchs like the Lion and Angron come to mind as powerhouses, whereas Guilliman definitely just does not. But badassery doesn't come from talent or skill. Badassery comes from pushing yourself above and beyond, surprising people with your tenacity and ferocity, and basically achieving above what is expected of you. The guardsman that stood in front of the Emperor to protect him from Horus wasn't a very good fighter. If anything, he was a bit of a spurg. But his actions, although led to his horrific death, were extremely badass and convinced the Emperor not to give up. When you think of Guilliman, you think of a big blue nerd who is always super stern, a bit of a goody two-shoes who doesn't lose his cool. Well, today I'm about to rock your world, baby, and show you that Guilliman is an absolute beast and makes all the naysayers that tease him all the time look like silly little monkeys. If it wasn't obvious by my strange language at this point, I'm not allowed to swear until the 3-minute mark of this video. Let's get into it. When the Emperor wanted to clap the galaxy's cheeks, he created 20 demigod super soldiers using some incredibly questionable methods, including, but not limited to, wanking into a tube and then stealing power from the gods of hell.
It's also been revealed now, too, that the Primarchs actually do have a mother. And no, I am in a different theory. I don't think the Emperor swindled the Chaos Gods. I think in their perspective, he swindled them. But what I think happened in that journey, and Warhammer 40k diehard, knowledge people, people who are more familiar with the lore, perhaps you can correct me on this one, but this is my theory about the Emperor and how he's able to get the power to create the Primarchs and also get such a huge boost. I think the Emperor in the warp found the last remnants of what it used to be when the old ones were still around. Like the last real essence of good that was in the warp. Because let's face it, the warp is a hellscape, and calling it a hellscape is generous because it is an everlasting nightmare. And that's why I think the Chaos Gods are saying that they swindled him, or that he swindled them. Because they probably wanted whatever remained in the warp. Now, do I have any evidence to back up my theory? No. And will the Warhammer 40K community curb stomp me? Absolutely. But it's just a theory, and if I'm wrong, please correct me. I at least want to know. But that's how I view it, because I don't trust Tzeentch, Slaanesh, Nurgle, Khorne. You know, the Chaos Gods are Chaos Gods. They're liars, too. I mean, yes, once in a while they might, or one of their servants might, possibly, kind of, sort of, in the rarest possibility, tell the truth. But it's only to benefit them, and they'll twist it in a way to make a truth look reasonable, even though it's not reasonable at all. So that's what I think the Emperor did when he went into the warp. I think he found the last essence of what the original warp used to be like, the last essence of good in the warp, and the Chaos Gods, because at least according to lore, he went to another planet where there was a gateway into the warp, and apparently walked in and out. Now, when Horus did the same thing, when he walked in, and then when he walked out, because time works differently in the warp, he was more visibly aged, and people noticed that. Like when he walked in, and then when he walked out, Horus, that is, because he did the same thing the Emperor did, he was more visibly aged. So that means he stayed there longer. But also, according to lore, Horus did the deeds for the 4 Chaos Gods. The Emperor didn't do that. So I'm just curious to see what your thoughts are on my theory. Anyways, continuing on.
Each of his children, called Primarchs, were designed to represent one or more of his aspects of his character. For example, Magnus was the Emperor's thirst for knowledge and psychic prowess, Rogal Dorn was his unbreakable will, and Lorgar was his deep and regrettable taste for choir boys. Guilliman was his administration and practicality. Whilst this wasn't as exciting as Sanguinius's wings or Corvus's ability to become invisible, it was by far the most effective. So when the gods of chaos yeeted the baby Primarchs across the galaxy by taking advantage of the Primarch's mother's postnatal depression, Guilliman was the one who succeeded the most. By the time he was found, he'd already created a star-spanning empire. Did you hear that, Angron? A whole empire. For the most part, that is what Guilliman is known for.
Angron, I do pity him. But he really... For those who don't know, Angron is, as at least the community is saying, that he was the Emperor's empathy. And that the Butcher's Nails destroyed whatever remained of Angron's original personality and who he once was. And, yeah. Poor Angron. He's the Primarch. He's one of the Primarchs I pity that fell to chaos. As for Mortarion, no, we all know my opinion on old Morty. I think he's a piece of shit. Mortarion is a piece of shit, literally and figuratively.
His immaculate tax returns. Everyone knows Guilliman is effective, but this isn't what this video is about. It wouldn't be a really fun video if it was titled Guilliman is Effective Warhammer 40k Lore. His badassery comes from the fact that despite being chosen as the administrator, he pushes himself to become a demigod of war, making even the most insane berserkers of Khorne no fear, and regularly challenging and even beating creatures significantly more powerful than he. I'm now going to go through and explain every moment of Guilliman's that show him as the monster I want you to see him as, not just the privileged white Aryan kid that we love to tease. A lot of Guilliman's reputation as an administrator was from the Great Crusade. There was not much need for him to go beast mode, even though he still did it on occasion, such as when he led the Ultramarines in massacring some powerful Xenos, with G-Man personally performing a gnarly fatality on their leader. It was not until the beginning of the Great Crusade that we begin to see the dark suppressed side of Guilliman's rage, more or less kicking off because of Lorgar, that creepy pedo fuck. The first moment of, oh, hey there Roboute, was when Lorgar was throwing a tanty and smashed his huge-ass mace into Guilliman when Guilliman was blowing up Lorgar's favourite city because he was being too religious. Instead of losing his cool or even blocking the attack,
the Siege of Monarchia. Which, by the way, again, Lorgar. The Emperor told you he's not a god.
Guilliman just gets up and asks Lorgar if he's done being a bitch. Nice. Sometime later, when Lorgar had accepted Hel as his new dad, he launched a surprise attack against the Ultramarines. Now, it did take Guilliman a bit of time to realise what the fuck was going on. The thought that half the Primarchs were now evil was a strange thought indeed. As such, Guilliman was broadcasting a message that said, "Yo, we are friendly, stop shooting us, you retards." But when he realised it wasn't an accident, he changed the message to, "Lorgar is a kitty fiddling fuck who needs to eat shit and die."
Rock and roll.
As soon as he changed the message, Lorgar gave him a call and basically gave him the old villain monologue, where they act really cocky and tell the other person their entire plan for no specific reason other than to gloat. During the call, Guilliman drops his cold and calm demeanour and straight up tells Lorgar that he's going to get violently sodomized to death. Lorgar replies by being a bad sport and blowing up the command bridge where Guilliman is, knocking G-Man into space without his helmet. But that's just a minor inconvenience for the giant blue daddy.
Yeah!
He proceeds to run around space, screaming in the void, whilst pulverizing word bearers left, right, and center. In a shower of violence and death. G-Man then re-enters his ship and begins a counterattack. Now, generally, a Guilliman counterattack would be him sitting in a bunker giving calculated and precise orders, whilst Eldar Porn plays on a different monitor.
Okay, it's not confirmed nor denied that him and Yvraine are intimate. I mean, you know, yeah, she did help awaken and arise Guilliman. But, you know, I don't know. I mean, I, for one, think that they are just good friends. Even though it's interesting that she keeps on visiting his palace here and there. Probably nothing. Probably nothing.
That is more or less what Lorgar was expecting. I mean, I guess he was expecting Guilliman being blown up and thrown into space to be somewhat fatal, but this would be plan B. Guilliman instead was like, fuck this, and he went against his nature. He personally led an elite strike team from the front as they attack various heavily defended positions in order to gain the upper hand in the battle.
Yes.
There is a scene where a bunch of word bearers, including the powerful Gal Vorbak, were guarding an important location. Guilliman pops in with a handful of Ultramarines, and they begin charging at the more numerous group of word bearers as they scream in rage and anger. The word bearers are so shocked that even the Gal Vorbak feel fear, the Gal Vorbak being demon marines. None of them raise their guns in time, and Guilliman gets to them and begins tearing them limb from limb in a massacre. It was seriously epic and very unexpected. Like, that's something Leman or Angron would do, as they were made to be ferocious. This new side of Guilliman allowed...
Well, technically, Angron wasn't made to do that, save for the butcher nails that changed its nature. But yeah, so here's the thing about Guilliman, right? I view him as a statesman. I view him similar to like Julius Caesar or Augustus Caesar. He is someone who knows how to effectively rule and be an administrator, and I think he sees the bigger picture. I think for a long time, the Warhammer 40k community has really dismissed the Ultramarines by calling them Mary Sues or Roboute Guilliman because I guess they have everything working for them. But if you look at Guilliman's nature, he was able to create an empire within an empire, a realm of 500 worlds. And of course, yes, he created the Codex Astartes. But everything he did was the aftermath of the heresy. You know, that was just his response towards how maddening it was seeing the Primarchs betray the Emperor. And now that the Emperor's gone, Guilliman, being the administrator, being someone of reason and of tactics and trying to be practical, was trying to make sure that something like this would never happen again. Now, of course, when Fulgrim poisoned him and technically killed him, you know, the Imperium fell into true decay. I mean, I have to wonder what the Imperium would be like. Maybe if Guilliman did not die at the hands of Fulgrim during that time, perhaps maybe things would not have gone as crazy as they did. But, you know, in the 10,000 years after where Guilliman is resurrected, what has redeemed Guilliman in my eyes, and I never really dismissed him as much, but what had him gain more points in my book, he's admitting he made mistakes and that he shouldn't have split up the legions, that he shouldn't have broke up the 500 worlds. And he's realizing that the great dream that his father was trying to create, well, it's turned into an everlasting nightmare. Plus, his conversation with the Emperor himself kind of revealed some truths to Guilliman, where it's like, oh, he views me as a son. He views me as a tool. He's telling me I'm the last hope, that I'm a great disappointment. So there's a lot of things that's going through Guilliman's mind. And mind you, he is by himself. And yet, while he is the Emperor's son, you know, the Lord Commander of the Imperium, he has to deal with betrayal from the High Lords of Terra, other sub-factions within the Imperium, including the Inquisition and the Ecclesiarchy. He has to deal with that because, remember, Guilliman is a man of science and reason. You know, the Emperor never told him about the warp or chaos or demons. The Emperor never shared any of that with them. And the thing is, the Emperor for the last 10,000 years has been worshipped as a god, and Guilliman remembers the Emperor for who he was because he walked beside the Emperor, and he's more or less telling people that, look, the Emperor's not a god, he's a man, but he has to be careful saying that because for 10,000 years, the Imperium has been indoctrinated into believing that the Emperor is a god. And so now Guilliman has to tiptoe around eggshells around people that never even met his father. And he has to do this by himself. I do hope that when other Primarchs do come back, if they do, you know, at least Guilliman will be able to build a heart-to-heart relationship, or at least talk to his brother and like, hey, I made some mistakes, and we got a lot of serious issues we have to fix here, and I need you by my side. Because honestly, Guilliman can't do this by himself. He cannot. And there are many things that he has to deal with, external, with the Tyranids, the forces of chaos, the Chaos Primarchs, Xenos factions, and even within, too, forces within the Imperium that will be doing everything they can to undermine him. And he is the son of the Emperor. I think more or less, you know what, hey, let's have this, let me ask your thoughts. How do you really feel about the character Guilliman, the Primarch, the Lord Commander, Primarch of the 13th Legion? Because honestly, I have to say, of all the Primarchs, yes, he did have a very privileged upbringing. He was raised by two parents of high nobility. But he was raised by two normal people, more or less. Of course, they were very privileged. But I think he understands human beings, in my mind. And plus, you know, he was able to step up to be a leader. And I think he gets a lot of unnecessary hate. And I think if in the hands of proper writers, Guilliman can be a very enduring and monumental figure within continuous Warhammer 40k lore. Because here's a Primarch who is a human being. Yes, kind of, sort of, maybe he is. Maybe Primarchs are humans. More or less, they are human. But, you know, even he is dealing with his moments of doubt, regret, remorse. It turns out he's not a Mary Sue. And he can't solve all the problems. And he is by himself. He needs his brothers. And his brothers need him. A perfect video for Christmas Eve, huh?
Allowed the Ultramarines to repel the Wordbearers. What should have been the destruction of the Ultramarine Legion turned into a slaughter of Wordbearers. To an extent. Both sides got pretty fucked hard here. Now after this, Guilliman could and usually would have spent time regrouping and analysing the situation, thinking about the next move and the bigger picture. But
right on.
Guilliman had unleashed the beast, and all he wanted was revenge, so he put together the most patchwork makeshift fleet of ships that was still somewhat functional and begun chasing Lorgar, revenge burning in his pants. Eventually he catches up to Lorgar, who is buddied up with Angron. They get caught because Angron and Lorgar arrived at Angron's home planet, you know, the one that he couldn't conquer. You know, because he was the only Primarch who was unable to conquer his own planet. You know, because he fucking sucks. Angron was taking too long having a cry and messing about, hence the Ultramarines led by their mightily pissed off Aryan Overlord arrived. Lorgar and Angron had their capital ships and fleets of 2 legions. Guilliman had a ragtag team of ships that had been thrown together at the last minute. Take a guess who ended up winning the space battle. Guilliman's forces were able to destroy Lorgar's capital ship and nearly took over Angron's via boarding. G-Man was then able to blast a hole in the trader's fleet and land on the planet, where he immediately charged at Lorgar and the two fought. I would say at this point, Lorgar's power level was higher. He had accepted his psychic gifts, been powered up by chaos, and had fought against Corvus and numerous other space marines. Despite this, I would say Guilliman actually came out on top. It really depends which hit you count as harder. Either G-Man's uppercut, which shattered Lorgar's sternum and crushed his ribs, or Lorgar's mace to Guilliman's face, which tore off half of it. The damage is comparable. Guilliman ate that mace hit like it was nothing. He was even then able to hold off Angron for a time, despite that injury, being exhausted, and Angron being Angron. He only made the decision to finally fall back when Angron turned into a big-ass angry demon. You know, that's a decision I can really get behind. If he had stayed, he wouldn't have been a badass, he just would have been a retard. Did I mention that Guilliman was stabbed with the same knife that was used to mortally wound, then turn Horus to chaos? And you know what Guilliman's reaction was? It was, "Oi, dickhead, don't do that," before then punching a hole through the man who stabbed him and walking off the injury. Sometime
That's pretty badass, actually. Again, I think a lot of people dismiss Roboute Guilliman's triumphs and victories. And yes, previous writers have made the Ultramarines look like Mary Sue's, but part of that adds to the charm. And let's face it, in any other universe, or wait, let's rewind that back. If you found yourself in the Warhammer 40k universe, right? If you found yourself in the Warhammer 40k universe, and, you're surrounded by hostile Xenos or some other horrible faction, and the Ultramarines came in at the last minute to save you, and you're there. Don't tell me you won't be raising up your arms and be like, "Oh, thank goodness! It's the Ultramarines! Oh, thank you! Thank you, thank you, thank you!" I'd be grateful.
After this, Guilliman is in a position where he believes the Emperor is dead and the traitors have won, as he wasn't able to receive communications from Terra due to warp spaghetti. Does he despair and go into hiding? Does he join Chaos to save himself? No. The Mad Lad sets up Imperium 2.0 and guides Sanguinius and the Lion to him to prepare to wage a new war against Chaos. Despite setting this all up, as soon as he hears that his father is alive, he ditches everything and charges back to Terra, giving Sanguinius the opening to get back there in time and kind of save the day.
Okay, I also got to say this here too. In the recent lore, especially at the end of the Dark Imperium trilogy, there's that book that the Forces of Chaos drop where, Imperium Secundus under the rule of Sanguinius, and how Guilliman was building Imperium Secundus. He really thought that the Emperor was dead. I don't see that as a scandal, but I know that there are some dumb forces within the Imperium, the Inquisition, most notably. And yes, I know that there's been a lot of lore around the Inquisition, that there are some Inquisitors that do at least have 2 functioning brain cells. But the Ecclesiarchy, too, that would jump on that and say, "Oh, well, Guilliman's a traitor." None of these people or factions knew the Emperor. And I don't see the scandal surrounding Roboute Guilliman as being so devastating. I mean, he really thought his father was dead. He didn't know. The Primarchs were never told about Chaos. All right, so I mean, honestly, with the Inquisition, with the Ecclesiarchy, I mean, they know about Chaos. Hell, I'm surprised they're not executing themselves because they know about Chaos, right? And now the whole universe knows about Chaos because of the rift, right? What does that tell both factions, knowing that the Emperor never told anyone, period, including his sons, about Chaos? Guilliman logically thought his father was dead, and he had the Lion and Sanguinius there. Hell, Guilliman gave control of his own empire to Sanguinius. He named him Emperor because it was a logical choice in his mind. Everyone forgets that. Like he literally said, "Hey, we got to make a new Imperium. Sanguinius, you got to be the one in charge." Why? Because here's the thing about Sanguinius. At least according to all recent Warhammer 40k lore, he was the most like the Emperor. He resembled the Emperor the most. Through action, through character, and so much more. Hey, correct me if I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, Warhammer 40k community, please type in the comment section below if there's something I missed. Please enlighten me so that way I don't make the same mistake. If there's something more I need to add, please let me know. But Guilliman did that. I don't see that as a big scandal. But then again, there are dumb idiots, dumb jagoffs within the Imperium, the Ecclesiarchy, and the Inquisition that would capitalize on that, including some of the High Lords of Terra. Anyways, that's just my 2 cents. But again, Guilliman's a beast, so Majorkill is correct.
Post-heresy, Guilliman was the only Primarch that was sensible enough to administer and rebuild the Imperium, while the rest of these loyalist brothers were facing suicidal vendettas. Looking at you, Rogal. It takes a lot of restraint and willpower not to give in to the rage and desire to seek revenge. Unfortunately, G-Man allowed himself to get outplayed and fatally wounded by Fulgrim, which is a bit embarrassing, but even then he was still being a badass. He knew Fulgrim was the better fighter, but if only he could hold a Fulgrim for long enough, his fleet could have won the battle. Unfortunately, Bobby G didn't account for the fact that Fulgrim now had 4 arms and 6 tits, hence Bobby G suffered a fatal knife wound to the neck and died. But he survived! After 10,000 years of stasis, some Eldar death voodoo combined with some mad science brought the big boy back, and not a second too late. When Guilliman was revived, Chaos was invading his homeworld, and they were only meters away from him. You should really read the excerpt of when Guilliman was revived, it's extremely badass, and I'm going to adjust this here, but basically once he stood up, the entire room, dozens of warriors, most of whom were insane, stopped fighting. Everyone was completely shocked, until a Cornite Berserker Leroy Jenkins himself at Guilliman was bisected for his efforts. Guilliman then takes a moment to look at his surroundings, before then charging into the crowd and more or less single-handedly kills the entire Chaos army. You gotta remember that Chaos during the Heresy is very different from Chaos in 40k. Guilliman woke up with the Eldar as his allies, Space Marine sons he doesn't know, and way more gnarly Chaos Marines. To him, he was stabbed in the neck and blacked out, only to wake up to an intense battle all around him, which he then absolutely rocked. When he drove Chaos out of his home, he was tricked into putting on a Slaaneshi crown. The crown was supposed to corrupt whoever wore it, but after a couple seconds, Guilliman removed it and had the Slaaneshi spy arrested. After this, he entered in an absolute fiesta of a journey to Terra, where Magnus and his forces of Titsnitch were trying to fuck him every step of the way. When he finally got to the moon next to Terra, Magnus popped out and attacked him. Magnus, a massive red magic demon against our boy. Magnus threw a building at Guilliman, set him on fire, and was just an all-round shitty brother. In return, Guilliman was able to break Magnus.
I do pity Magnus. He was tricked and seduced into joining Chaos. I think of any of the Primarchs that I would switch around. Hold on, I'm going to get a lot of the Warhammer 40k community angry at me. I would switch out Magnus for Ferrus Manus and have Magnus be a loyalist. I think Magnus's fall to Chaos was a loss. Was a true loss.
Magnus's jaw, and with the help of some Elder and Sisters of Silence, banish his brother back to the warp. Pew! Finally, Guilliman be home. He can have a breather. No, he can't, because a fuck-huge demon army of Khorne has rocked up and Guilliman is back to battle. Guilliman is able to lead the Imperium to victory and defeat the armies of Khorne. Now he can rest, right? Well, maybe, but he doesn't! He completely purges Terra of Xenos, mutants, and Chaos cults before then reforming the Imperium and mustering the largest fleet the galaxy had ever seen for 10,000 years. With this fleet he purges the galaxy, delivering reinforcements everywhere he can. He went from the brink of collapse to thriving despite how many threats it faced. Guilliman only left the crusade when his other evil brother, yes he's got a couple of those, Morty, invaded his home.
Oh, Morty.
Once again stood up to and fought off his brother, despite his brother being heavily empowered by Chaos. Throughout all of this, Rub Me Off Gorilla Man has been able to maintain a sense of humour. It's not a very good sense of humour, but it's the effort that counts. Guilliman isn't the strongest, fastest, or most skilled Primarch. He's not even close, yet I would say he has the most conviction and will. All the other Primarchs more or less just follow their design. Guilliman is able to break from this and push himself to new heights without becoming a Mary Sue. He makes mistakes and miscalculations.
True.
He loses duels and gets his ass kicked, but he comes back stronger every time. Being a badass isn't about punching someone, it's about taking a punch then getting back up. I'm really hoping Guilliman is able to get his revenge against Lorgar. A scene I hope for would be where Guilliman tracks down Lorgar and beats the shit out of him, but he gets held back with psychic powers as Lorgar opens up an escape portal. Before Lorgar escapes, he mocks Guilliman. However, as he's mocking him, Corvus Corax emerges from the escape portal and impales Lorgar, holding him in place as Guilliman walks up and kills Lorgar permanently with his flaming sword. This means Corvus and Guilliman getting their revenge, and it allows Corvus to re-enter the setting. I think that would be cool.
That would be.
This is for today, guys. Why Guilliman is an absolute beast. I'm just trying to do my part and make people realize that Matt Ward hasn't worked for GW for about 7 years now, and it's okay to like Ultramarines and Guilliman. They become one of my favourite chapters, and now you might see why. If you enjoyed the video and want to support the channel, then Patreon is the place to be. Where only $1 per month give you access to a boatload of Warhammer hentai. Hit the subscribe button and the subscribe button for more beastly content. Join the Discord for more memes, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.
All right. So, yeah, let's actually have this conversation. So, look, the Ultramarines have gotten a lot of hate. But I find it to be very endearing about who they are. And I think Guilliman has a lot of potential to really make himself a symbol that, fans of the Imperium, players of the Imperium, be it Imperial Guard, Sisters of Battle, Space Marines, all that good stuff, can rally around. And let's face it, if there's one person that could possibly, maybe, kind of, sort of, could, maybe not, but could un-F the Imperium, it's Guilliman. But even then, we're seeing that this is a very huge, monumental task. He has to deal with a lot of factions and individuals and groups that have special interests within the Imperium that will purposely undermine him. He needs his brothers. And Guilliman has made mistakes. He's admitted that he has made mistakes, not only to himself, but maybe even to others too. And he's in a universe, in a timeline in which his father's vision of humanity is an absolute nightmare. So Guilliman is one of my favorite Primarchs. He's up there. He's up there. He's my number one. Sanguinius is there. Then there's Rogel Dorn. Yes, Magnus is there too. Let's get this conversation going. What are your thoughts on Guilliman? How do you view him? I mean, and it's okay. Look, if you view him as a Mary Sue or you don't like him, period, I want to hear your thoughts. I want to hear your thoughts. Share them with him, or share them with us, or if you respect them or you're indifferent, I want to hear your thoughts. And also, hey, who is your favorite Primarch too, by the way? So there you go. And let's please be respectful to each other's opinions. Yes, it's the internet, and it's very easy for all of us to start fighting each other, but let's have an awesome comment section below. Let's actually share some ideas, thoughts, all right? And if you don't like Guilliman, just explain why. Tell me why. Just tell me why. I want to hear your thoughts. Or if you really like Guilliman too, tell me why. And who's your favorite Primarch? Tell me why. I want to hear your thoughts, because let's face it, it's very rare that I react to Warhammer 40k content, and I want to enjoy this as much as I can when I can. So until then, folks, please support the original content creator, Majorkill. All right, that link will be in the description box below, because it's very important for us to support the original content creators. And be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Chicago Reacts. Hit that ring bell notification. That way you're made aware when we upload new content onto our YouTube channel. Until then, folks, take care of yourselves and stay warm out there.